midnight screams.
I signed up for a 24-hour gym membership because I was tired of people. That sounds dramatic, but I mean it in the simplest way. I hate crowds. I hate the grunts, the slamming weights, the tiny puddles of sweat people don't wipe up. I hate the awkward small talk. So I signed up for the late-night membership upgrade, meaning I could swipe in after midnight. The first time I walked in at 1:13 a.m., I felt like I'd unlocked a secret level of the world. The place was empty, dark, except for the emergency lights, music off, no front desk staff, just the hum of the vending machines. Heaven. Or at least, that's what I thought. It didn't start creepy right away. The gym area was quiet but normal. I even liked the eerie stillness. I wore headphones but didn't play any music. I liked the silence better. It felt reverent. Then, after a few nights, I discovered something weird. The locker room was colder than the rest of the building. Not AC is blasting cold, but damp, underground cold. The kind that settles into your bones. The kind that makes you think of basements and morgues. But the weirdest part wasn't the temperature. It was the lockers themselves. The lockers at night felt alive. The first time I noticed, I was tying my shoes on the bench. The metal lockers behind me popped loudly, like cooling metal, except they kept going. Pop, creak, rattle, shift. Normal buildings settle, sure, but this sounded like something was moving inside. I stood and put a hand on one of them. It felt like something was breathing on the other side of the door. I yanked my hand back so hard I almost punched myself in the face. I told myself I was being dramatic. It's just old metal, air pressure, whatever. But the next night, I heard whispers, soft, faint, impossible to make out words, but definitely whispers. I spun around so fast, I slipped on the tile. No one was there, of course. I stood still, held my breath, and I swear on my life, the lockers whispered again. This time, I could make out a word. Why? I left without working out. The next night, I considered not going back. But that stubborn, skeptical part of my brain won. There has to be an explanation, right? Midnight rolled around. I walked in. Silence, as usual. But the silence was different now. It felt aware. I didn't want to go to the locker room, but I didn't want to chicken out either. So I forced myself inside. I hesitated before opening my locker. The hum of fluorescent lights seemed louder. My own breathing echoed. Pop, creak, whisper. I froze. One of the locker doors gently swung open. It wasn't mine. I hadn't seen it move. I just noticed it was open when it hadn't been a second ago. I stared at it for a full minute, waiting for someone to jump out and yell, "Gotcha!" But nothing happened. Then, from inside that open locker, I heard soft breathing. I don't know what possessed me, but I stepped forward and looked inside. Empty. Totally empty. But the breathing continued behind me. I turned slowly. Nothing. Then, slam. The locker door I just opened flew shut so hard the metal rang. I screamed, out loud, like a full-on horror movie scream. My heart felt like it was going to shatter my ribs. And then, My own reflection in the mirror across the room turned and looked at me. But I hadn't moved. I was frozen. Facing the lockers, my reflection was turned toward me, smiling. It raised a hand and waved. I stumbled back so hard, I hit the lockers behind me and fell to the floor. Stop! I don't even know who I was yelling at. My reflection tilted its head, smile wider, too wide. And then, it mouthed something. 3 words. You left her. I stopped breathing. How the hell did it know? No, don't think about that. Stop, I whispered. Stop it. The reflection blinked. Slow, deliberate. Then it turned, its head back toward the mirror front view, perfectly neutral, like nothing happened. I ran out of the locker room and didn't come back for a week. But you know how horror works. Avoiding it never solves it. My brain wouldn't let it go. I replayed it over and over. The reflection, the whisper, the breathing, the words. You left her. It was a memory I kept buried. A secret I never told anyone. A night I hated myself more than I thought possible. A night I walked away when someone needed me. A night someone almost died. I tried to forget it. The locker didn't. I told myself I needed closure, so I went back, late at night again, because apparently I'm an idiot. My keycard beeped at the door. The hum of the vending machine greeted me like usual. But the air was different, thicker, silent. The gym felt darker. Even the emergency lights were dimmer. I felt watched the moment I stepped in. I didn't go to the equipment. I went straight to the locker room. The moment I crossed the threshold, I knew something was waiting. The mirrors were fogged over, like the room had been full of steam. But it wasn't warm. It was freezing. The lockers were slightly open, not all the way, just a fraction of an inch, like something inside had pushed. The air buzzed with whispers, not faint this time, clear, layered, overlapping, dozens of voices, hundreds. Why did you? You knew. You left. It's your fault. Tell it. Tell the truth. My knees went weak. The mirrors slowly cleared. My reflection stared at me, not smiling this time, crying, real tears streaming down its face. Same eyes, same everything, except not me. It spoke. I heard his voice out loud, not just in my head. You brought it with you. I shook my head. Brought what? It didn't answer. Instead, every reflection in every mirror turned. Angles that shouldn't have lined up. Reflections that should not have been able to see me. Dozens of me. All watching. All waiting. Then my reflection stepped forward. Out of the mirror. I tried to run, but the floor beneath me vibrated. The tiles shifted. I fell hard, skinning my palms. The reflections climbed out of the mirror one by one. They weren't copies of me anymore. They were wrong. Some were older, some younger, some broken, bent, twisted, mangled. Versions of me that should never exist. Versions of me that died. Versions of me that did terrible, unspeakable things. They circled me, their eyes full of accusation. You left her, they chanted. You left her. You left her. Stop, I screamed. I didn't know she needed help. One reflection stepped forward. The first one, the one that smiled. She knelt beside me. But you knew she was hurting. My stomach dropped. It wasn't talking about some random girl. It was talking about my sister. I was 17. She was 15. She had been so quiet lately, so distant. I thought she just wanted space. One night, I heard her crying through the wall. I stood outside her door for a full minute. I almost knocked, but I didn't want to deal with it, so I walked away. She tried to kill herself that night. My mom found her in time. I hated myself, but I buried it, pretended it never happened. We never talked about it. She got help. She's alive. She's okay now, right? Why are you showing me this? I whispered. All the reflections smiled at once. Because she never left. The locker room groaned. The metal warped. The walls stretched. A locker door in the corner slowly creaked open. Inside, in the darkness, I saw something move. A girl, curled up, pale, crying. My sister, but younger, as she was that night. Please, she whispered. Please don't leave me again. My heart shattered. I won't, I said. I'm here. I reached out. Something grabbed my wrist from inside the locker. Not her. Something else. Something with long black fingers and too many joints. It squeezed my wrist until bones ground together. You can't save her, the thing hissed. You never did. I screamed as it pulled me toward the dark. I fought, clawed, kicked. The reflections watched, emotionless. The thing dragged me halfway inside the locker. Darkness swallowed everything. The air inside was thick and wet. It smelled like rot and old tears. I thought I was going to die. Then I heard a voice behind me. A real voice. Soft, trembling. Her voice. Let him go. Everything froze. The grip on my wrist loosened. I twisted around. Standing at the locker room entrance was my sister. Not young, not broken, as she is now. Alive, strong, a little sad, always sad, but healing. She looked at me, really looked. I've been coming here, she whispered. Every night, I knew you were here. I knew something was wrong. The shadows recoiled from her. You didn't leave me, she said. You didn't know how to help, but you're here now. She reached out and grabbed my other hand. Warm, real. She pulled me out of the locker. The thing inside shrieked. The reflections contorted. The mirrors cracked. The whole locker room screamed. The lights flickered violently. The metal warped. The whispers turned to deafening, inhuman howls. My sister held me tight. Close your eyes, she said. I did. The world exploded. I woke up in the parking lot. It was 3:07 a.m. My sister was sitting beside me on the curb, arms around her knees. She stared at the gym entrance. It won't bother you again, she said. My voice shook. What was that? She hesitated. Pain, she said finally. The kind that festers. The kind that fills the empty places. The gym. It feeds on secrets, on guilt. People go there to fix their bodies. But the lockers, she shivered. They want what's inside your head. I stared at the building. Dark, silent. But how did you stop it? I asked. She didn't look at me. Because I already faced mine. That hit me harder than anything else. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, I whispered, "I'm sorry." She nodded. "I know." Another pause. Then she took a deep breath. "Can you come home with me?" she asked softly. I nodded. We stood. As we walked to the car, I noticed something on the ground near my feet. A gym towel, folded neatly. I didn't bring one in. My stomach dropped. There was writing on it, in black marker. "I know you heard her." I stopped walking. My sister saw it, picked it up, read it. Her hands trembled slightly. She looked at me. "Don't let it in again." I nodded. We got in the car and drove away. I canceled my membership the next morning. But here's the thing. An hour after I canceled, I got an email from the gym. "We're sorry to see you go. Before your account is fully closed, please remove your belongings from the locker room." There was an attachment, a photo of a locker door, slightly open. Inside, I could see a towel with fresh writing, bolder, angrier. "You left all of us." I didn't sleep that night. I'm writing this now because I need someone to believe me. I don't know what the gym really is. A parasite? A mirror? A door? All I know is this. It didn't want my body. It wanted my guilt. And I'm afraid it's not done with me. Because in the silence of my apartment, just now, from the hallway closet, I heard a soft metal click, like a locker door opening, and then whispers. I inherited my grandpa's house. He left me a note about the door I need to guard in the attic. "Hello, everyone. I'm not sure how to explain what's happening to me, but I'll try. It started a few months ago, the day my grandpa died. I'd been to enough funerals to know the rhythm: black clothes, hollow condolences, that heavy air of finality. It was all too familiar. That day, I learned Grandpa left me his house, but he left me something else too. A plain white envelope with just 2 words scribbled on the front. Read carefully. Inside was a note that would change my life. It read, "To my grandson, Nathan. If you're reading this, it means I've failed, and that I'm no longer here to see you become the man I always hoped you would be. There's something that you need to know about our family, something that I've kept from you your whole life to protect you. You've inherited more than just a house. You've inherited a family secret. There's a door upstairs in the attic that sits in the middle of the room. You haven't seen it yet, but you will. It's a door that chooses to show itself to you, and once it does, your life will never be the same. It only appears to the men in our bloodline. I couldn't explain it to your grandmother or your mother. They thought I was crazy because they could never see it like I could. I've managed to keep the door locked away for over 60 years so that your father could raise you and give you the childhood I never could for him. Every night of my life was spent standing in front of that door and making sure it stayed closed, because if no one is watching, it opens. It can't ever open. That's why this next part is important. You need to heed these rules, no matter what. Do not open the door no matter what you hear. You must be standing or sitting in front of it. You cannot be more than 10 feet away. When the voice behind the door speaks, do not to respond. Do not close your eyes unless you want to open them again. Always remain at your post. You can sleep when the sun rises. There will be more, and when they appear, you need to be ready. The door is always watching and learning you. Your resolve will be tested. I won't sugarcoat things. If you fail, you will die. That can't happen, for if the door is left unguarded, the world will be in grave danger. I hope you're stronger than I ever was, Nathan. I believe in you. Good luck. Love, Grandpa Bill. The note shook me to my core. I'd always looked up to Grandpa Bill. He was my last real connection to my parents, both of whom died in a house fire when I was 17. I never got to say goodbye, and I never had closure. My grandmother passed a year later, and after that, I was left with a few distant relatives who barely remembered I existed. But Grandpa, he made me feel like I still belonged somewhere, like I hadn't been, completely forgotten. Losing him felt like losing the last piece of myself that still remembered what home meant. For a while, I didn't even want to be in the house. The memories, the silence, all of it felt wrong. But I had to be strong, just like he would have wanted. I couldn't let the door win. I moved into the house immediately, and that night is when my duty began. As soon as the sun went down, I took my grandpa's note with me and went upstairs to the attic. When I reached the top of the stairs, I laid eyes upon the door for the first time. It stood in the middle of the room, and its crimson red wood was warped and shone faintly in the moonlight from a small window nearby. Scratches ran across the surface, deep gouges, like something had tried to claw its way out or in. I sat a few feet away, not daring to get closer. It just stood there silent and still for now. But I couldn't shake the question that lingered in the back of my mind. Why was my family given such a peculiar task? The longer I stared at the door, the more it felt like staring into an answer I didn't want. The silence pressed against me, thick and waiting. Nothing happened for the first few hours, but a little after midnight, I heard a knock. At first, I thought it might have been my imagination, but I heard it again. This time, it was louder, heavier, and unmistakably coming from the door in front of me. I fell backwards and watched the door shake from how hard the knocking had become. Eventually, the knocking stopped, but the air was moving. It wasn't wind, it was slow, warm, and rhythmic. The door was breathing. Each damp, sour exhale brushed my face, the smell of decay curling like smoke. I backed up, but remembered not to go too far away from the door. I didn't say a word or move again until the sun came up. When the light finally touched the door, it stopped breathing. That's how it was for the first week. Life outside the attic felt paper-thin, the price of a routine I was still learning to survive. My coworkers started noticing the dark circles, the zoning out during meetings, the way I'd flinch whenever someone tapped me on the shoulder. One of them joked that I looked like I was living in a haunted house. I laughed, but I didn't correct them. I burned dinner twice, forgot my neighbor's name when we crossed paths, and nearly drifted off behind the wheel at a red light. Then the sounds started following me. The fridge humming downstairs began to sound like chattering teeth. My reflection lingered a little longer than it should have. Sometimes I'd catch myself whispering the rules, not to remember them, but to convince the door I still believed in them. It felt like a pact, like a ritual I couldn't escape. With every repetition, the rules grew heavier. They stopped feeling like protection and started feeling like chains. Everything real was starting to feel fake, and the only things that felt real were the voices and the door. Day after day, night after night, my life split in two. one under the sun, the other in the dark. By day, I'm just another exhausted office drone. By night, I'm the gatekeeper. Work 8 to 5, eat, sleep if I can, climb the stairs, watch the door until sunrise, and repeat. Every night blurred into the next, until time itself felt like another rule I had to obey. I almost started to believe the door would never change. On the 8th night, I heard the voice behind the door speak for the first time. Do not be afraid. It didn't sound threatening. In fact, it had a gentle tone that only made it all that more disturbing. I remember walking up to the door and standing in front of it, my pulse erratic as my body shivered slightly. A part of me wanted to open the door and put a name to the voice, but I remembered my grandpa's note. Do not be afraid. It said it again, softer this time. I followed the 3rd rule. Listen without answering. So I stood there, shaking, listening to that voice. As the hours dragged on, I kept thinking about how my grandpa sat in the attic every night. Did he deal with the same things I'm dealing with? How did he deal with listening to the voice? Asking myself questions is how I would pass the time watching the door in the dark. It kept my mind sharp during the monotonous ritual of watching the door from sundown to sunrise. That's what it was like for about a week. Routine had almost made the horror feel ordinary, and that's when it decided to change the rules. Right before I went upstairs one night, I saw another line on my grandpa's note that hadn't been there before. In frantic handwriting, it said, 6. If it cries, ignore it. From then on, each night only got worse. The crying started around 1 It was the kind of crying a wounded animal made. I wanted to help, anything to make the cries stop. I almost whispered, "Are you okay?" But the rule was clear. Ignore it. So I did. In response, the floorboards near the door had darkened, and the air around it shimmered like heat-off asphalt. Whatever was behind that door, it wasn't just growing stronger, it was changing the world around it. I could feel it noticing me more each night. And then, as if sensing my fear, the rules changed again. A couple of weeks later, just before I made my way upstairs, I noticed some new lines had been written on the note. 7. It will show you things. Do not believe them. 8. It will tell you the future, but it's all a lie. The ink looked fresh this time, like someone or something had written them just moments before I came upstairs. They didn't make sense to me, not until the door made me understand. It didn't scream or cry like it had before. Instead, it spoke calmly about the things that awaited me in the future. You're going to become head of your department, Nathan. You'll fall in love and have 3 children, Elise, Michael, and Jonah. The names echoed in my head like they belonged there all along. Elise will have your eyes. Jonah will want to be a pharmacist, like his grandmother. My eyes burned as tears threatened to fall. They'll all live long, happy lives, unless you keep me in here. For a second, my body actually moved. I felt my weight shift forward, like some part of me had already made the decision. I pictured my future the way it described. Warm, bright, full of laughter. I wanted it. God, I wanted it so badly. But I saw through the threat masquerading as hope. I remembered my grandpa's handwriting again, warning me of the consequences, and forced myself to step back. What had once been calm and persuasive, telling me things about myself, about the future, about promises too good to be true, became violent, almost desperate. With each sob and scream, the door groaned in a sickening rhythm, barely containing whatever was battering against it. I covered my ears, begging for the noise to stop, and after a few minutes, it did. For a moment, I thought I had earned silence. But silence, I learned, was just the calm before something worse. The door's cracks began widening, twisting upward with sick crunches, the wood shifting to form the shapes of lips, dozens of them. They were murmuring the story of a peaceful life waiting for me. If only I would open the door. Its words filled the darkness, and shadows moved all around in shapes I recognized. My grandpa appeared next to me, but not the one I saw in the casket in the funeral, but the youthful one from old photographs. "Grandson," he whispered in a voice that almost sounded like his. I didn't speak. I couldn't, even though I wanted to very badly. My dad waved at me and told me how proud he was of me. My mom smiled and beckoned for me to open the door so we could be reunited as a family. I leaned in front of the door, my hand on the knob about to turn it, when I saw something blink in the keyhole. It was an eye black and moist, sliding sideways, watching me, refusing to blink. I stumbled back, and the whispers stopped. The silence felt heavier than the noise, but even in the stillness, something was shifting. I used the flashlight on my phone to keep myself from nodding off in the early hours of the morning. Sometime around 2:30 a.m., I noticed the shadows started to pulse against the light. Every few seconds, the door's wine-dark surface would brighten from the inside out, glowing faintly, like there was something behind it, pressing its face right against the wood. That image alone was enough to make me sit in the darkness the rest of the night until the sun signaled it was morning. Every night, I felt myself unravel a little more. My thoughts weren't just mine anymore, they had a different voice. The door wasn't just trying to break through, it was trying to break in, as if wanting to listen closer to what I have to say. Maybe that's why the rules kept getting more difficult each night. It knew my thoughts before I did. Before I went upstairs one time, I found 2 new rules written in the steam on the bathroom mirror. They read, 9. It will try to bargain. Do not accept. 10. Do not believe the sounds you will hear. It will do anything to make you leave your post. I thought I understood the rules, until the early hours of the morning, when it didn't knock, but begged profusely. "Nathan, let me out. Please, just once. I can make it stop." But I wasn't hearing just the voice of the door. I was hearing screams of my parents. They were as gut-wrenching as they were familiar, and I heard them coming, from downstairs, then outside, then under the floorboards. A moment later, I smelled smoke. It was faint at first, but the smell of burnt wood and melting plastic filled the air. I nearly bolted downstairs, my body ready to run and save them. But then I remembered the rule telling me not to believe the sounds I'm hearing. The door was toying with me by digging into the deepest trauma it could find. I clenched my fists and stared at the door, unmoving. It spoke in my mom's voice, then my dad's, then Grandpa's, sometimes weaving all 3 into one seamless, haunting sentence. Then, it spoke in my voice, in the same tremble I've heard in myself every night since I moved in. "Please, let me out. Let me out. I just want out." Frozen in place, I endured its begging for hours. My body screamed for a break, even just the relief of closing my eyes. I was losing focus fast, the kind of fatigue that makes your eyes twitch just to stay open. I had to do something, A desperate plan surfaced a way to trick it, maybe. Hoping to cheat the rules, I angled a mirror across from me. One eye could rest while the other kept watch. For a time, it worked, until the reflection shifted. In the mirror, the door stood wide open. Something slithered out on all fours, gray-skinned and scaly, bones cracking with each movement. Its head tilted toward me, not in curiosity, but in mimicry, like it was practicing being human. I snapped my eyes to the real door. The real door was still shut tight, breathing. When I looked back, the mirror was empty, except for 5 wet fingerprints smeared downward, like someone had leaned against it from the inside. I sat there for a long time after that. The lantern burned out, but I couldn't bring myself to light another one. I kept thinking about my grandpa, standing in the same spot for 60 years, his eyes fixed on the same door, watching it breathe, whisper, and beg. Did he ever think about just walking away? I think about leaving every night. I think about the stairs behind me, about sunlight, about sleep. But then I remember what my grandpa asked of me. My responsibility is what keeps me here, and the fear of what happens if I stop watching. When morning came, I didn't remember falling asleep. I only remembered the mirror and the way those fingerprints stained it. To drown out the noise, I fixated on one impossible question. How did Grandpa carry this burden for decades? The more I thought about it, the more I feared the real answer. Maybe he didn't. For a while, nothing really changed outside of my routine, the knocking and the voices pleading behind the door. That is until some more rules appeared on the page. 11. A single moment of inattention is all it needs. Do not falter. 12. Do not fall asleep in front of the door. At this point, I was delirious and running on fumes. I could barely stay awake at work, and I was averaging maybe 1 to 2 hours of sleep a night. There's only so much coffee and energy drinks can do for your body before it stops working as effectively. There was one instant where my eyes almost fluttered shut, and I swear I felt something brush against my cheek. The knocking started again, but it wasn't coming from the door anymore. It was coming from behind me. I spun around, nearly tripping over the lantern. Then the walls, the window, and even the ceiling above me all echoed with that knocking sound. The door would shake. The voices would scream. I'd see my loved ones begging for me to open the door, but I wouldn't. The voice behind the door would speak things to me like, "Do not be afraid. Open the door. Nathan and I will make all of this stop." I ignored it. At around 3 a.m., my phone started ringing across the floorboards. The screen said, "Grandpa." Seeing his smiling face on the screen shattered something in me because I knew he was dead. Despite the feeling in my gut telling me not to, I answered. Nothing about the rules said that I couldn't take a phone call. "Nathan," his voice crackled through the phone speaker. "You've done enough, my boy. Let me take your place. Go downstairs and rest now." My thumb hovered over the screen, my heart thudding as I remembered the other voices, the lies. I ended the call. The phone ran nonstop until sunrise. Hours later, a new rule appeared, one that nearly broke me. In slanted, sloppy letters was the worst one I had seen yet. 13. Eventually, you will fail. Fight it off for as long as you can. I read that line over and over until the ink blurred. The words didn't feel like a warning anymore. They felt like a countdown. Not just because of what is said, but because of what it didn't. Maybe this is what Grandpa meant. Maybe failure isn't about opening the door. It's about how long you can last before you want to. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. The last few nights, I've been hearing slow, deliberate footsteps behind the door, and the floorboards creaking in time with my own heartbeat. I keep telling myself none of it's real, that I'm still the one in control. But the longer I watch, the more I notice the door wasn't where it used to be. Last week, I marked its position on the floor with painter's tape to signify a border I wouldn't cross. I checked last night, and the tape was gone, and the door had moved. It had only moved just a few inches at first, and it made me think that maybe I was imagining it. After all, I was running on empty in terms of sleep, but night after night, it kept inching closer. It didn't drag or creak, it just shifted, like it wanted to be closer to me. I measured the gap once 10 feet, then 8, then 6. I stopped checking after that. The space between me and it was shrinking, and I swear I could feel the heat of its breath on my face. Sometimes the floorboards sank a little beneath it, like it was pressing down with weight. Whatever was behind it was coming for me. This discovery led to another rule appearing. 14. No matter how close the door gets to you, do not touch it. I didn't plan on it. I was too tired to plan anything anymore. Just existing felt like a strategy in itself. Last night, I swear I saw something move beneath the wood, like a hand pressing out. I think my grandpa's 60 years only bought us time, and now that time is almost gone. He kept whatever this thing is locked away for decades, and now it's my turn. One day, it will become somebody else's. I don't want them to suffer, like I and the men in my family before me have. My hands won't stop trembling. I haven't slept in days. I've started hallucinating at least. I hope they're hallucinations. I swear, I saw the attic walls breathing last night. I wonder if the door is even real. Maybe I've lost my mind trapped in a psych ward, mumbling while unseen eyes watch through glass. I can hear them all. My parents, Grandpa, myself, they all speak from behind the door, and the longer I listen, the more their words sound like truth. A new rule appeared, carved directly into the attic floor, just in front of where I sit. 15. When your eyes close for the last time, the door will open from the inside. I don't know if I'm protecting the world from what's behind the door, or if I'm looking after it so it can't escape before it's ready. Maybe that's what Grandpa meant when he said he failed not that he lost, but that he finally understood what he was guarding. And yet, he kept watching. So now I do too. There's one rule Grandpa never wrote. If the door ever stops whispering, it means it's already won. My parents call to me now. And now, another rule. 16. You will forget which side of the door you're on. If Grandpa could still see me now, I hope he knows I tried. The latch just turned.